What if I said the pyramids of Egypt, Machu Picchu's walls, and lost civilization myths were all linked by one ancient secret? A secret not hidden beneath the sand, but carved openly on a temple wall for all to see. It seems unbelievable, but that's true. And today we'll start deciphering a code that could rewrite the entire history of humanity before we dive into this new journey to the edge of knowledge. If you haven't done it yet, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this is the best way to support our work and to make sure you don't miss the next chapters of this incredible story. In the vast theater of human history, there are still many dark areas, unresolved questions that patiently await an answer. There are mysteries linked to artifacts dating back to prehistory and monuments that stand as silent guardians of ancient building knowledge. Think of the majestic walls of Cusco, Machu Picchu, or Sacsayhuaman in the Peruvian mountains. How is it possible that these ancient civilizations created such grand works without the aid of advanced metal tools? How did they move, raise, and assemble these massive stone blocks? An equally fascinating enigma emerges at Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, near the majestic Lake Titicaca, at an altitude of 3,800 meters. Here are the remains of an ancient civilization. One of its wonders is the Gate of the Sun, carved from a single 18-ton rock monolith. These are just some of the most mysterious places on our planet, and the list could be much longer. The key to deciphering them may lie in a specific place, a monument that might hold the key not only to Egyptian history, but to a forgotten chapter of all humanity. And to find it, we have to go to Egypt. The Temple of Edfu honors Horus, the falcon god, son of Isis and Osiris. This is a relatively recent construction. In fact, it dates back to the Ptolemaic period, so between 237 and 57 before Christ. It was built on the foundations of a much older temple from the Old Kingdom, dating between 2700 and 2200 before Christ. But the peculiarity of the Temple of Edfu does not lie in its antiquity, but in the inscriptions it contains. The temple inscriptions reveal several remarkable references to the first time, an era governed by gods before the pharaonic dynasties. This concept, considered by many Egyptologists as mythical or legendary, could actually hide deeper truths about the birth of this extraordinary civilization. According to what is narrated in these ancient inscriptions, a civilization made up of divine beings would have ruled the world before the advent of the Egyptian dynastic societies. They would have been the ones to bring civilization to Egypt, teaching agriculture, astronomy, geometry, and other fundamental knowledge. After all, if we read the inscriptions found in the Temple of Edfu, there are many clues that suggest the ancient Egyptians, rather than being the creators of their knowledge, actually inherited and passed it down over time. Even the very construction of all the sacred monuments seems to follow a design and a building knowledge that appears to have been handed down by these ancient beings. But to understand the significance of these statements, it's useful to take a step back and listen to what the ancient Greeks said about Egypt.
We Greeks are actually children compared to this people, who have traditions 10 times older than ours. And while none of the precious memories of the past would survive for long in our country, Egypt has recorded and preserved forever the wisdom of ancient times.
What we can add is that obviously these accounts are seen by historians as the result of myth, invented stories that therefore have no real value. However, this belief arises from a deep misunderstanding in modern thinking. In fact, the word myth has acquired a different meaning from what the ancients attributed to it. Today, with the word myth, we mainly mean the sense of a fable or legend. But for people in the past, it had other meanings. The term mythos is Greek and means word, sentence, announcement, so it means tale or story. For Hesiod, the ancient Greek poet, mythical tales were stories narrated in such a way that they could be indelibly impressed upon the human psyche, engaging people both emotionally and mentally. Experience and archaeology's history confirm this is true. For years, people believed the city of Troy described in the Iliad was mythical and entirely invented by Homero. But in 1871, the adventurer and explorer Heinrich Schliemann, following the geographical clues contained in the Iliad, discovered Troy in western Turkey, near the Dardanelles.
Don't you know, Skeplio, that Egypt is an image of the sky? Will there come a time when it will have been in vain? That the Egyptians have honored the divinity with sincere piety and service, and all our sacred worship will be useless and ineffective. The space-traveling gods will return from earth to the sky, Egypt will be abandoned, and the land that was once the home of religion will remain desolate, deprived of the presence of its deities. The madman will be considered a brave man, and the wicked will be regarded as good. What about the soul and the belief that it is immortal by nature or can hope to achieve immortality? As I have taught you, they will mock all of this and even convince themselves that it is false.
Evidence for these primordial kings who founded the ancient kingdom comes from various sources, including classical authors who mention them. They also appear in the famous Turin Royal Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian document from the late 19th or early 20th dynasty, listing 10 primordial rulers of Egypt. Greek historian Eusebius, citing Manetho, a priest and keeper of Heliopolis's archives, claims Egyptian civilization began in 30,500 before Christ, so well before the official chronology. And the founding of Egyptian civilization would be traced back to the primordial kings, who are said to have ruled for as long as 13,900 years. But who were these deities or primordial kings who founded the ancient Egyptian civilization? Where did their wisdom come from? Were they beings from another world, or were they simply the heirs of a lost and technologically advanced civilization? The inscriptions of the Temple of Edfu provide another important clue. The founding gods are said to have come from an island. The native land of these primordial beings was said to be beyond the borders of the Mediterranean, but due to a cataclysm, the island was destroyed in a very short time. All right, let's try to follow this clue. Recent studies show that 13,000 years ago, a massive meteorite hit Earth, shifting its axis by up to 2,000 kilometers. A real cataclysm that shook the entire planet, with violent earthquakes and terrible volcanic eruptions, followed by a rise in sea level that would have flooded much of the planet's land. This event isn't new to those familiar with mythological tales from around the world, though some see them as mere stories. Let's imagine for a moment that, before this catastrophic event, an advanced civilization existed on our planet. And let's ask ourselves, are there clues that support this narrative? Let's listen to what he says. Plato, who had visited Egypt and met the priests who guarded the wisdom of the primordial gods.
And now, my friend, to me is forget the mythologies and listen to an ancient tale. You will find what is happening today and what happened long ago, and what is worthy of being known. In the land that we now call Atlantis, there were powerful kings who ruled over a vast, large island and many other nearby islands. Moreover, this island ruled over parts of the continent that surrounds our true sea. Therefore, at that time we had access to the whole world, since our sea was within the Pillars of Hercules, and it can be said that what has now become a sea was then a true sea.
Platon goes further, describing the Golden Age when the god Saturn ruled as a kind shepherd.
In the Golden Age, long before man built his cities, happiness reigned. Saturn did not allow any man to rule over other men and cause injustice. The god used the same methods to rule us that we use with our flocks. At the head of a flock, You don't put a lamb or a ram, but a shepherd, a being belonging to a different species from them, of a superior nature.
Plato describes a time when higher deities ruled the world and assigned lesser deities, or demigods, incarnated as humans, to educate people and guide them to wisdom. These gods therefore take on the role of the Good Shepherd, guiding humankind and dividing the earth among themselves. This would have created the divine dynasties. For our channel followers, this topic isn't new. We've seen it in other cultures and places. But now let's return once again to Egypt and analyze the figure of the god Thoth. Thoth is described as a divine being born in a distant land. To be precise, an island located to the west of Egypt and beyond what is now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. But there's more. The ancient texts tell that one day the sun darkened. It darkened so much that it frightened the gods, and they, with the help of Thoth, fled across the sea to a new land. At this point, we can't help but wonder if these gods who left the island were the Atlanteans, maybe because of a meteor shower that unleashed an immense catastrophe which destroyed their nation, and that they then found refuge in Egypt, a place where perhaps previously they had established a protectorate, and that for some reason was spared from the global catastrophe, or where the destructive effects were less severe. Clearly, there is no evidence that any of this is true, but even in this case, we can look for clues, as we have seen. The Temple of Edfu inscriptions mention a first time, but tangible clues indicate Egyptian civilization is truly that ancient. In light of what we have deciphered from the inscriptions of Edfu, we can return to the Giza Plateau and look at it with different eyes. The Great Pyramid is probably much older than Egyptology claims, but we also know that if we accept that a catastrophe happened 11,000 years ago, the Great Pyramid must necessarily be after that date, because it still appears perfectly aligned with the cardinal points today. And this wouldn't have been possible if it had been built earlier, because it would have shifted due to the movement of the Earth's axis. The pyramids aren't the only fascinating monuments on the Giza Plateau. There is at least one case that can prove, without a shadow of a doubt, the antiquity of the site. The Sphinx. What we know is that the Sphinx is older than the Great Pyramid, and according to some studies, its age could coincide exactly with that first period described. And it was. In the 90s, geologist Robert Schoch showed the Sphinx must be at least 10,000 years old. The signs of erosion present on the body of the statue clearly indicate that it was subjected to intense rainfall or flooding events, which could not have happened less than 10,000 years ago, before the Giza Plateau became a desert. So the Sphinx is definitely older than commonly believed, and could even date back to before the catastrophe that occurred 11,000 years ago. We also need to add another important detail. At the Giza complex, there are remains of what are considered evidence of foundation structures and preparatory works, which are much older than the pyramids. These structures are very interesting because, as we learn from the inscriptions found in the temples, the ancient Egyptians followed a precise construction plan believed to be conceived by the deities and carefully respected. This plan was so detailed it seems more like a reconstruction of ancient sites than building something new. To support this theory, we can add that beneath the known structures present in Egypt, there seem to be places and rooms whose existence has been suspected for a long time, but for which inexplicably no thorough research has been conducted. We will return to this topic soon with a new video, but to make people understand the importance of what might still be hidden under the sand in Egypt, it's enough to mention the case of the labyrinth of Meridi, described by Herodotus as more majestic than the pyramids themselves. It is said to be made up of more than 3,000 rooms, and in the underground chambers, according to the accounts from Greek authors, the remains of the primordial deities and the original documents might be kept, from which all Egyptian wisdom would derive. Now, if we accept that there was an advanced civilization before the ones we know, many pieces seem to fall into place. Discoveries like Göbekli Tepe or Gunung Padang no longer seem like inexplicable anomalies, just like the ruins of Cusco, Machu Picchu, or Tiahuanaco. The story of divine beings who incarnate as men and become guides for humanity. It's found in Egypt with Osiris, in Crete with Minos, who got laws from Zeus, in Moses, who received them from Yahweh, and in Viracocha for the Inca civilization. These are just a few examples, though the list could be much longer. What we find in these ancient accounts are just myths, legends, or do they instead suggest that our history might be much more complex? From the talking stones of the Temple of Edfu, every mystery fits into a broader, clearer picture. Now, we're really curious to know your opinion. Write in the comments what you think. We'll discuss it again soon, as there's still more to cover. And if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support our work. Until the next story.